Hey everybody, you want to move online in a weekend? Distance education in the nick of time? It's Carrie Beam talking to you from the University of Arkansas. I'm with the MSOM, Masters of Science in Operations Management program, housed in the Department of Industrial Engineering at the University of Arkansas. And this talk is recorded in March 2020 in the midst of the coronavirus and the social distancing movement, when all of a sudden everybody wants to be online. This talk is how you too can move online in a weekend. Ready, fire, aim. I've had people writing to me saying things like, I need to move all my face-to-face classes online and I have 48 hours to do it. Help! I'm deluged with inbox offers of video conferencing services, online testing services, and other stuff. What do I really need? And my cat, kid, or spider plant keeps making background noise, walking on my keyboard, being distracting when I try to teach from home. What to do? So why are they asking me these things? Well, I am a clinical teaching professor at the University of Arkansas. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, which is not near Arkansas. I started teaching in the MBA hybrid online programs in 2007, so I like to say I was teaching online before online was cool. I've been with Arkansas's MSON program since 2012. Now 90% of our students are fully online. I've written class after class for the online environment: risk management, intro to operations management, statistics, maintenance management, Lean Six Sigma, design of experiments, and analytics. I've done it by myself, and I've done it as part of a team. But the other reason they're asking me is I know it is very possible to go online for the first time with distractions. I started putting my first Arkansas class online while I was driving kids and a dog back from Michigan to California after summer vacation. On the left, you can see us with Route 66. This was a couple years ago. The kids are now bigger. In the middle, that is not the dog. And on the right is about what I looked like at the end of that road trip. But I did have a couple of good weeks of material online. If I did it under those conditions, you can do it this weekend. This is what I produced, the first online class from 2012. It was very basic. It had one folder per week. It had one task, which was the homework. It had a bunch of homegrown videos in which I did the homework. And it had nothing else. And this is essentially what you are aiming for if you need to go online in a weekend. Today, we have bright, shiny online classes with lots of bells and whistles. I gave a talk about this called Moving Online at Informs Phoenix in 2018. You can still get that link from Informs. It shows all of these bells and whistles. That reflects about 300 hours of upfront development time per class. And I should reframe that: 300 plus skilled hours of people who already knew what they were doing. Your weekend is 48 hours at best, so you were probably not going to hit that this weekend. Just so you know, an in-person class, typically, if you teach it for one term, it'll take you some amount of hours, 2 terms, double the hours, 3 terms, triple the hours. With an online class, with all the bells and whistles, there's typically a much heavier upfront development cost, but then when you get the automatic stuff working, it's got a shallower slope. We are not going to be able to afford this right now, so we're going to talk about how you can jump from here to about there. So this talk is how to get your face-to-face class online in a hurry. I teach in the School of Engineering and Quantitative Methods things, so this is probably somewhat biased towards that, but my hope is that it will be useful to the poets among you as well. I'm going to cover the following questions. What technology do I need and in what order? What is the Quickie To-Do List? How to manage communications with students? What about homework? Really, what about lectures? And oh my goodness, what about exams and online proctors? So the technology answers. If I had to go online in a weekend, immediately I would make sure I had a computer, a microphone with a headset, a webcam, and a smartphone. And I would also make sure I had an online learning management system. This is going to be Canvas, Blackboard, Moodle, Google Classrooms, or some other thing for your students to log into. Very soon, I would acquire TechSmith Camtasia to record videos, and then some kind of live video session technology. WebEx works, Zoom works, Blackboard Collaborate works. WebEx, I think you need an institutional license for. Zoom gives you 40 minutes for free. And then soon, like after this weekend, I would sign up for Gradescope for handwritten homework, and I would also see if I could get ProctorU for online proctoring of exams. ProctorU is something that is arranged at the university level, but Gradescope I think is offering free trials to everybody right now. Your new technology creed. Open quote. For every new piece of technology, I will deploy it myself, go in as a student and test it. After I have tested it and found it to be delightfully streamlined and perfect, I should expect that 80% of the students will be able to get it to work the first time, 80% of the remainder will get it to work the second time, and 80% of that remainder will require a third attempt, and some subgroup may never get it to work in the allotted time frame. Therefore, my late policies will probably need some adjusting. End quote. Repeat as needed. That's your technology list. The next question people ask me is, what is my Quickie To-Do List? This is what I would have somebody do. The first thing I would do is get this week's materials online today. Worry about the rest of the class later. The next thing I would do is decide about the final exam. And there's more on that later in this talk. And then the third thing I would do is run this week's classes using video conferencing technology live at the usual time. If I'm moving to recorded lectures, I would record those later on and do that next week. Then I would invest 3 to 4 hours of my time learning to work the online classroom. Yes, even if you hate to do these things and hate to read the directions. I would focus on learning how to post announcements, how to offer and receive assignments online, and how to organize material into folders. And then I would look at how to post a link to an external video on YouTube. And then I would also look at how to upload and post a link to a video that I have recorded. And then in a pinch, I could always record my stuff and upload it to YouTube and then link to that if I just cannot get my university's online management system to work in time. I would not worry very much about using an online gradebook for grades. I would keep whatever existing system I had. I wouldn't worry super much about online discussion groups. I wouldn't worry about anything fancy like adaptive release. I wouldn't worry about any automatic grading. These things are all wonderful, but they require a significant upfront investment of time, and time is what we don't have right now. I would also encourage you to realize that you now need to impart 2 types of knowledge to your students. The first thing you need to impart is whatever subject you're teaching, for example, statistics. The next thing you need to impart is how to work the online classroom. And the way to do this is to hugely over-explain where to find things, how to submit things, and when things are due. And you have competition. You have competition on the search front. Their expectations about how easy it should be to find things online have been set by Netflix and Google. And you also have competition on the fulfillment front. Their expectations about how easy it should be to submit things online have been set by YouTube and Amazon.com. Now, we always say competition brings out the best in people. Let's hope it brings out the best in you. I would rely heavily on the announcements feature in the online classroom. Face-to-face, there's a joke that says if I didn't write it on the chalkboard, then I didn't say it. The converse here is online classes. If it's not in the announcements, it didn't happen. And for the announcements, I would never say something as basic as do the homework that can be found online. This is not over-explanatory. What you want to do is say something like, to find your homework for this week, go to the Weekly Lessons Week 7 folder on the left menu bar, and from within Week 7 scroll down about 2 screens worth. The homework is called Week 7 Homework. You will download the assignment as a Word document, type your answers into it, give it a file name that you specify, and submit it online. To submit online, click on the underlined Week 7 Homework link. Now some of you are saying, this is too much. But right now, I would assume my average student trying to submit homework has the news playing on their phone, a toddler at their knees, something bubbling over on the stove, and 2 other academic classes competing for that last shred of attention. The last thing they want to do is run an internet searches on how to submit a Word document in Blackboard. So I'm going to tell them. The last little bit of our to-do list is anytime it's the student's first time to do something, like submit a homework online, I would include screenshots of exactly how. So again, this is not what you want. Do not say, submit your homework online. Instead, take a screenshot, circle on it exactly where they need to click to submit the homework, take another screenshot of what it looks like when it's successfully submitted, and then put the whole thing right in the announcement when you tell them about the homework. How? You can use Windows Snipping Tool to grab screenshots. You can use Snagit. You can use Microsoft Paint or PowerPoint to add circles and arrows to your screenshots and then save that as an image for posting. This is what it should look like. See, click here to submit your homework, and then after you click there, this is how to attach a file, and here's the submit button. You guys are going to ask me, do I really need to include all those screenshots? I say yes, unless you're one of those people who likes exciting midnight phone calls from students who cannot find the submit button. Now what we're going to do is looking at how to manage communications. When you're face-to-face, you typically communicate using words to your students in person. You probably do a little bit of emailing, but communication management can be different if everybody's online all the time. So for the outbound, I would proactively email the whole class, blind carbon copy, on a schedule. I would probably do it once at the beginning of the week and then once 24 hours before things are due. I would also post these emails in the class announcements to keep a record of them. I would standardize the format of these messages. For example, welcome to week 7. This week's work includes a written homework set, a group project, and a quiz. All of them are due on Wednesday night at 11:59 p.m. Central Time. The homework assignment is, and then here's where I would put, can be found in the week 7 folder under week 7 homework. Here's where I'd post links to my lectures. Here's the quiz. Here's how to tell them how to get a hold of me. And then this is the invitation that if I'm having live office hours online, this is how I would do it. And I would keep this standardized format every single week. So if I had a 10-week class, I would send out probably 10 of these. Inbound communication, I would revise my inbound student communication protocols. When students email, they should include the class in the email header, i.e. OMGT 5003, and then tell me what it is. This is going to be especially important if you have more than one class or lots of students. It's sometimes helpful, you're going to get a lot more email, so it's sometimes helpful to batch your email responses, like tell people that you'll be reading email at 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. each day. Otherwise, if you answer each one as it comes in, you'll get interrupted every 6 minutes forever. Sometimes you can have people do structured incoming communication, like say you'll do video chat on every Tuesday at 2 p.m. and in this case you email the instructions 24 hours ahead of time. For my grad students, I typically invite them to text or call anytime, and then I only pick up the phone if it's convenient. You may or may not find that to be a dominant strategy. Now we're into the good stuff. What to do about homework. In a crisis, I would have them put handwritten homework in the U.S. mail to the professor and include a self-addressed stamped envelope if they want it back. They can also scan handwritten homework to a PDF file and submit it by email, or significantly better, have them submit it to the online classroom. If you have them submit it to an assignment Dropbox in the online classroom, it gives you a date and timestamp of receipt, plus it keeps all the homework away from clogging up your inbox. There are iPhone apps where you can snap a picture of something and make it PDF from your phone. And then after this first week, I would move to Gradescope. It's an online software program where students can upload PDFs of their homework, and you can grade it by pushing hotkey buttons and then return it with individual comments on each problem. It's user-friendly enough you can delegate this completely to a teaching assistant, and they are offering free trials in this emergency, but it takes about a week to get it set up. And per the earlier slide, you're going to need to test it, so you're going to need to put an assignment up in Gradescope and then do it as a student, submit it as a student, go back around as the professor, grade it as the professor, return it to the student, and then go back and be the student and look at your feedback. And once you're sure that that's working, then and only then is it safe to deploy in your class. The next question people get is lectures. If you're going synchronously online for the first time, synchronous means everybody's in the same time in the same place. I would run a practice lecture the day before and invite a friend to attend as a student. I would dial in 10 minutes early. I would email all students the dial-in info and post in-class announcements. I would include a backup plan if it doesn't work. I would have tech support procedures so students don't call my cell phone during the live session if they can't connect. I would ask everybody except the speaker to put themselves on mute. I would verify I myself was off of mute before I started lecturing. The first words out of my mouth would be something like, "Raise your hand if you can hear me." I would also verify when my webcam is on or off. This is especially important if you're doing a lecture in the work mullet. A work mullet is a new word. I've just learned this. It is attire when you wear formal business attire from the waist up and less formal attire from the waist down when you are on a video chat call. If this is you, just be sure your webcam is off before you stand up and walk away from your computer. Also, put your slides on the screen and do a screen share so they can see your slides. If you are sharing your screen, it's helpful to clean up the desktop beforehand. Not everybody needs to see the Girl Scout snack schedule when you do this. Live lectures over the internet, it's even harder to keep their attention than it is in the real world. Your competition is now Twitter. A way to counteract this is to let them interact. Say things like, "Raise your hand if you can hear me." You can ask a question and have them post answers to online chat, like, "What suggestion would you make to the company's XYZ's CEO?" You can also ask students to share their screens too. For example, you can have them write a paragraph and then have a student put their paragraph up and have people give comments on it. It's polite to give notice when you ask specific people questions. So for example, it's significantly better to say, "George, what do you think of?" and then ask the question, rather than saying, "What do you think of question? Anybody? Anybody? George, let's have you answer." Because if George has been off on Twitter, all he's going to do is tune in when you say his name. If you say his name at the beginning of the sentence, that at least lets him save face. If it's a large class of younger students, you have even more competition. It now includes Instagram, Snapchat, and Netflix. Give them incentive to attend and give them something to do, like write a one-paragraph summary of the online session and submit it as a homework. And you can also record these sessions and post them in your online classroom for anybody who can't make it. That's especially important in times of emergency because sometimes people need to take care of family members and are not available even when they normally would have been. To record your lectures, post a large sign over your work area that says "Done is better than perfect." Break your lectures up into 5 to 10 minute chunks. Have a template for each recording. I like to do a PowerPoint cover slide with my name, the class, the subject, and the lecture number. Then the good stuff like what the lecture's about, and then a PowerPoint end slide. I like to use TechSmith's Camtasia to record. Use a microphone and a headset to get good sound quality, and use a phone timer to keep yourself to 5 to 10 minute chunks. The other thing I would do is use a vertical rather than a horizontal process. And by that I mean do not record all 10 of your 5-minute lectures and then render them all, then upload them all, and then slightly forget about what is in each lecture. Because what's going to happen is if your audio stops working on lecture 3, you won't find this out until you've uploaded them all, and then you have to go back and re-record them all. You're significantly better off to record the first 5-minute lecture, edit and render the first lecture. And rendering is typically what you do is you record it in Camtasia or some other software, and then there's a series of buttons you have to push where it converts what you recorded in its software into a video format that you can put on YouTube or in your online classroom. So edit and render your first lecture, then write a 1-paragraph summary of your first lecture and include any keywords. Then upload your first lecture to the classroom with a 1-paragraph summary description next to it for easy searching. And then go to the classroom and view the lecture as a student. Verify the audio. In my experience, when something doesn't work, much of the time it's an issue with audio. And then go back and do that whole thing for the second 5-minute lecture. Lectures in the classroom. Again, if they are asynchronous, this is an online search game. Students are searching for your lectures because they think there is something in your lectures that's going to help them get through this week. You want to make it easy for them to find it. For example, you could put them in the weekly lessons, week 6, in a lectures folder, or if you have a couple lectures about a particular homework assignment, you could put them right in that homework assignment. The title would be something like Statistics 101, Week 6 Hypothesis Testing, Part 1. If I had 10 5-minute lectures, that would be Parts 1 through 10. And my paragraph could be something like, in this lecture, we cover hypothesis testing. We work example 6.1 in our textbook on this page and cover the null hypothesis and the alternative hypothesis. This way, when they go to the web page, they can do Control F to find hypothesis testing and immediately go to whatever lecture you covered that in. This is much better than having them email you and ask where the lecture on hypothesis testing is. Now we're down to the exams. This gets 3 question marks for the exams and 3 question marks and an exclamation point for the online proctors. So you've got some exams coming up. In a crisis, I would see if I could switch to a take-home exam, a final paper, a final presentation, or a final project, pretty much anything to get me out of having to give an online final exam. The reason for this is manyfold, including final exams count for a large portion of people's grades, and it's really nice to have something like an online midterm or an online quiz first to test out the technology. If you do final presentations, have the students mount them on YouTube or in your online classroom. Do not let them all email you their large video files. If I weren't going to switch to a take-home thing, if I were really determined to give a final exam, you can password protect exams and release the password at the certain time to everybody by email or class announcement. You can open the exam at the same time to everybody. For example, many online learning management systems have a date and time that the exam opens. If it needs to be proctored, an online system like ProctorU is the gold standard. And you can also give the exam over a time span like 3 days. It doesn't have to be that the exam is now Tuesday morning at 11 a.m. It is on any 2-hour chunk of time between Tuesday at 9 a.m. and Thursday at 11 p.m. If you are a first-timer and you're going with an online proctoring service, require all students to do the Proctor's free system check and submit a screenshot of successful completion 1 week before the final. This way, if their computer or their internet connection is not enough to support the video streaming needed for the exam, you'll find out sooner rather than later. If they are undergraduates, I would also require them to submit to the professor the date and time of their exam reservation. I have this as a homework assignment as well. Many people, especially undergrads, tend to believe that the professor arranges individual exam slots, so they'll just email me like, yes, I'd like to take a Tuesday afternoon at 2. This is not correct. ProctorU arranges this, so you've got to make sure that they know to arrange it directly with the proctoring company. And then for all of us, even though we like the idea of to prevent academic dishonesty of giving everybody the exam, between 2 and 3:30 on a Tuesday afternoon, with the online proctoring on bandwidth crunches, a 48 or a 72-hour window may be necessary. Also, your students may have personal emergencies, so they may not be able to show up for the exam. So how does an online exam work? Well, if you are the professor, ahead of time, you set up your exam in the online classroom, you set up a password, and you set up exam conditions, such as 2 hours open book or 1 hour no external help with the proctors. And then the student ahead of time makes a reservation for the exam. And then on the exam date, with ProctorU, the student will get on a video call with the proctor. They will verify their identity by answering some questions. The student will share their screen, and then they will navigate to the online classroom and find the exam. The proctor enters the exam password. Students don't get the password. The exam will open, and then the student will complete the exam while the proctor watches and records both the student and the student's screen. So you get a little video seeing the student's face, and you can see every single grimace as they read every single question in your test. And you can also see on the student's screen, where did they click the mouse, what did they open, what did they type. And then the exam submits. Typically either the student pushes the submit button or it times out and auto submits. And then we have log-offs. You can specify to the proctors that first the student logs off and then the proctor logs off. How can you give a good online exam? Anything that's multiple choice or a numeric question is a great online exam question. Essay questions are also pretty good. You can have them type their responses directly in a text box. You can also present a password-protected Word or Excel document where the student downloads the document ahead of time, and then they try to open it and the proctor enters the password. If you do that, use the same password for the exam and for the Word document. The student will complete the document, save and closes it, and then uploads to exam, and the proctor can verify that this document is closed, and that way you never need to worry that the student will then reopen it after the exam. They won't have the password, so they can't get back into it. And now I know all of you are saying, but my exam requires handwritten responses. Of course it does. So the first thing we got to do is recognize this is hard. If I were determined to give a handwritten response exam at distance as my very first exam, I would probably look at one of the following options. I could have an exam displayed on the screen after the password is entered, and then the student just handwrites responses on blank paper, and then they scan and upload their answers to either the exam on Blackboard or to Gradescope within 15 minutes of the close of the exam window. And in this case, I would give it to the entire class at the same date and time to minimize the spread of information. Limits and benefits of online proctors. Limits. Proctors can only report what they see, like cell phones. They can't actually reach through the screen and confiscate it the way if you are live proctoring your own exam, you can actually walk around your exam hall and take somebody's phone. And it also requires good internet bandwidth. But they've got a lot of benefits too. Some academic integrity violations are actually documented in the video and screen capture. For example, if students are not allowed to search for help on the web, if they open up a new window and search for help on the web, you've got it captured right there. And then one professor can individually review several student behaviors, even if everybody misbehaved at the same time. If I'm live proctoring an exam and somebody in the front left is doing something and I'm up there talking to them, this means somebody in the back right could do something else and I would never see it. With this, it is all video recorded and flagged, so I can review everybody at my leisure. And it also gives you better authentication than some large in-person classes. It's very difficult here for somebody who is not that particular student to show a driver's license and answer identity questions that verify this, whereas in a large lecture hall, sometimes they could send somebody else in. So our summary in a hurry, we have gone over what technology you need and in what order. We've gone over your Quickie To-Do List. We've gone over how to manage communications. We've gone over homework, lectures, exams, and online proctors. So how did we do? Our first question is, I need to move all my face-to-face classes online, and I've got 48 hours to do it. I think you now have some help. I'm deluged with inbox offers of video conferencing services, online testing services, and other stuff. What do I really need? I told you in this video, these are just the ones I'm familiar with. I'm sure there's lots of other great stuff out there, but I can vouch that the ones that I mentioned here are good stuff. And the last one, you've got domestic distractions from working from home. For that, I don't know that I fully answered it, but I can just encourage you to get out your dealy boppers and go with it because these are challenging times. Good luck moving online. You can reach me at the University of Arkansas at cmbeam@uark.edu. Good luck moving online and go Razorbacks.